Welcome in, fans, to another episode of the Two Line Pass podcast. I'm Randon, here with me, Dustin and Ryan. Well, the homestand is over, and wasn't exactly what we had hoped, but it wasn't worst case scenario. And we're going to break it all down on tonight's episode. We're going to talk about the homestand, we're going to talk about where it leaves us, and we're going to talk about where we're going afterwards. Dustin, Ryan, welcome in. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm very tired. I work very early on Tuesdays, so I'm tired, but I'm ready to talk hockey. I've been looking forward to this all damn day.
I'm doing pretty good today as well. The beginning of the homestand might not have been the best way to start, but we ended on a strong note, and that is making me feel like pretty positive going into this. So, how are you doing, Randon?
You know what? I'm just living the dream. I'm excited to talk some Utah Hockey Club with you guys, and let's get right into it. We talked about how the homestand, this upcoming 7-game trip, was going to be the definitive, it was the pinnacle moment of the season, right? It was the crossroads moment. It was a must-have series of games for a team that has historically struggled at home, has been decent on the road, and is fighting for their lives for that last wild card spot in the West. And we talked about how we needed to see this team go 500 or more and ideally win at least 5 out of the 7. Well, it didn't exactly go that way. We went 3-4, and I will say, though, we lost some of the games we thought we were going to lose, and we lost some that we didn't think we should lose. To recap it real quick, Florida opened it up. We knew that game was going to be tough, and Florida handed it to us. We lost 1-4. Again, the score implied that we got destroyed. 2 empty net goals. It was 2-1 late in that game. So that a little bit deceiving on the scorecard there. And then it looks bright. We go in and we beat San Jose 2-1. But then we lose 3 in a row to the Islanders, to Montreal, and New York. All 3 teams we have beaten previously in the season, all 3 come to our building and beat us. And with the exception of the Islanders game, it wasn't really close. Montreal gave it to us. The Rangers gave it to us. And again, those kind of short bursts. But then we came back, right? So highlight there, after the Rangers game, big injury, Mikhail Sergachev goes out. And he's out for the St. Louis game and the Winnipeg game. But we win the St. Louis game and the Winnipeg game to end the homestand strong. We picked up those crucial 4 points to end it, and now we're going back on the road. Guys, disappointing. 3-4 on the homestand was not at all what we needed, and certainly not what we wanted.
Yeah, we talked about that homestand before it happened, and kind of said that it was a microcosm of the rest of the season, that we'd probably finish at the end of the season where we're going to be at the end of this homestand. And we wanted to get at least 5 wins in that homestand. We thought, obviously, Florida and Winnipeg, the 2 bookends of that homestand, were going to be hard. But we needed to find 5 wins in there. We got 3, so we're back 4 points because we wanted 5. We only got 3. That's 4 points. That is the difference between where we are now and where Calgary is for that second wildcard spot. As of right now, are the difference between being on the outside and being on the inside. And really, it's looking like it's going to come down to like 4 teams fighting for that one spot, because Colorado's kind of starting to run away with that first wildcard spot a little bit. They are 6 points clear of Calgary in the first wildcard spot, and then you're left with like Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Utah all battling for that one last wildcard spot. And it would be really nice to have had those 4 extra points to be at least, technically probably on the outside looking in, because we're 1 game up on Calgary. We've played 1 more than they have, but at least right there. I just hope we're not going to look back at the end of this season at this stretch at some of those games, especially the Rangers game, because we were up in the 3rd period in that game, and we let them take it away late. So it's just, I really hope that we're not looking back at this saying that's where it went wrong.
I hope we're not either. And this was going to be one of those moments where we were going to pinpoint and say, here's where it all went right, I think was the best case scenario. But Ryan, you and I were in the stands for that 2-1 loss against the Rangers. While it was fun to be in the stands, the energy was electric. Again, though, this team just can't put it together in the Delta Center, and I don't know what to say.
It's concerning that, these guys are a much, much better team on the road than at home. But I mean, at the same time, if we do somehow sneak into the playoffs, we don't have home ice advantage. So that's a positive. But so the first couple games, yeah, it didn't look good. Those first four, really. But especially the last two, to look at some positives on it. The St. Louis game, I thought we played a full, like, 55 minutes. There were a couple minutes in there where we weren't the best team. But that utter domination of the Winnipeg Jets last night was a very big positive, and I really hope the boys can take those two wins and be like, yeah, we really messed up the homestand. You know, it was probably the second worst outcome of the homestand, going 3-4, right? I would say, other than going 0-7, 3-4 is the most disappointing. You know what I mean? Like, it hurts, because it's like you guys couldn't just win two of those. Come on, you should have beat the Islanders and you should have beat the Rangers, and to be fair, you should have beat the Canadians. Yeah, okay. Anyways, but the last two games we played very, very well, and going on the road, which historically speaking we have been better on the road, we can take this momentum and just kind of keep rolling. And yeah.
No, I agree with you. And there was certainly, it wasn't all doom and gloom. If you look at just the record, the 3-4, yeah, it's pretty doom and gloom. And Dustin, you're absolutely right. 2 wins away from that wild card spot in our hands right now. But there were some bright spots because of unfortunate circumstances that require the Utah Hockey Club to adjust on the fly. And the big part of that was Dylan Guenther going down. So Dylan Guenther goes down after the Florida game. He only plays one of these 7 home games and is out. Now, I'm not saying that Dylan Guenther is by far the most important player on the team, but he's a very important part of the offensive identity of this team, especially on the power play. But what that did was that forced coach to move Logan Cooley to the first line, make some adjustments. Josh Doan comes up. We kind of spoke about this, briefly, but this was a big moment. And if we are looking for bright spots, a takeaway from this, it is the Keller, Schmaltz, and Cooley line, and Cooley blossoming into the player that everybody knows he is. Everybody has seen him be, but now he's becoming, I think, that player before our eyes. And that was the big spot to me. Now, Keller is just being Keller, right? Keller's being outstanding. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, in the Winnipeg game, he takes a puck to the face and has to get, 12 stitches over his eye. It looks popped up. It looks like he's a scene from Rocky. And he comes out, he gets credited with a goal almost immediately after coming back on the ice. Of course, it's taken away. Olimata gets it, but traffic in front of the net created by Clayton Keller, and then Clayton Keller gets the empty net to seal it. But he has 11 points throughout this little homestand. He just crushed it. Nick Schmaltz has 8. Logan Cooley has 8 points on that first line. That first line of Keller, Schmaltz, and Cooley was outstanding. And I've got some thoughts on why, but you're seeing Cooley no longer has to be the playmaker on that second line and constantly look to find Guenther and McBain. Cooley can start to shoot the puck, and we saw that sniper shot of his. That no-look, top-shelf goal against Halibut was just a thing of absolute beauty. He's got to score his touch, and he's a playmaker. But Clayton Keller unleashed Logan Cooley. 5 goals from him. From that, more than over the course of just that 7-game stretch. He's on pace for much more because he doesn't have to defer. Logan Cooley doesn't have to defer to a Dylan Guenther or Jack McBain, mostly Dylan Guenther, but Jack McBain's got 11, 12 goals now, so it really is what we're seeing, and what I thought was the best part about this homestand is you're really seeing that chemistry develop between Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley, especially Keller becoming 2 goals, 9 assists from Clayton Keller was the playmaker. And Nick Schmaltz just got to be Nick Schmaltz, playing with 2 phenomenal players, and he gets 8 points out of the thing. He gets 3 goals. He's on a 6-game point streak now. He's blossoming. That first line, guys, I loved it, and I think the entire Utah Hockey Club fandom saw Logan Cooley, and the big takeaway is sign him. sign him for 8 years, 10 years, 12 years if you're legally allowed to. Like, you lock him up and make him a career Utah hockey clubber, because he is just something special. And he is just like Keller, where he is that kind of guy who can carry a momentum and the hopes of a franchise on his shoulder, because he's got the right raw talent to do so.
Yeah, and I want Cooley and I want Keller here long term. Like I texted you guys the other night. Like I want those two to be our version of Crosby and Malkin. Like the two guys that are just here for their entire careers. This team is their team until they're done playing the game. Like I want them in Utah, tied at the hip, on not only on the team but on that first line, because they are playing really, really well. And you guys talked about like bright spots to take away from this homestand. Like it's both a bright spot and it's a little frustrating, because we've seen how good this team can be against the best teams in this league. Like they've played really well against the Jets. Like last night was pure domination for 60 minutes essentially. That was from the first puck drop to the final horn, pure and utter domination. Like that was the final. I went to sleep early, so the final was what, 5-2 I want to say, 5-2, and we exited the first period tied at 0. And Utah created at least 3 really good scoring opportunities in that one. I believe it was it Kerfoot that had one on like a one-timer across the ice that would have beat Hellebuck if he got enough on that. Like he just scraped the ice a little bit before he got to the puck with that shot. But like that could have easily been an 8-1, 8-2 game. Like Utah generated chance after chance after chance. They've played well against Vegas. They've beaten Carolina. They've played well against Dallas and Minnesota. Like they've played well against all the teams at the top of this league. And you saw last night, when everything is clicking and when they're doing what they're supposed to, they can play with absolutely anybody in the league, which is what makes it frustrating when they have lapses against like San Jose and the Islanders and the Canadians, like we had in this homestand. Like we see the potential, which is a huge bright spot, but it's also like it's a little bit frustrating. And I just hope that it's a young team learning how to properly win, and they're just going to get better. They're going to close strong. We've talked about how easy this stretch, the rest of the schedule is, and I hope that they can work their way into the playoffs, get that first little taste of what the playoffs are like, and then they come back next year with the same core, and now they know how to win. They've tasted the playoffs. This is what you brought me onto the podcast for, is to kind of compare this to other sports for new fans that are coming over that haven't really followed the NHL before. But this is from like at the beginning of Oklahoma City, like when they had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. Like they were the number 8 seed in the Western Conference, and they got like a taste of what the playoffs were. They got a taste of winning, and then they skyrocketed from there. But that's what I hope this turns into. Like they learn how to win, they get a taste of the playoffs, and it drives them next year. Just need to take that next step. Like we've had enough of this competing with the good teams, but sliding down to the level of the competition when you're playing some of the worst teams in the league. You have to establish yourself and where you want to be.
Absolutely, and I think that's what we're all looking for, and we're all still, I think this homestand forced me to reconcile my beliefs of where we are in the rebuild and what a rebuild even means. And we've got a rant prepared for that we may save for another episode, because it doesn't necessarily tie in with this homestand. But like you talked about, Dustin, in terms of letting these young guys, we forget Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther, 20, 21 years old, there's still a lot of youth on this team. Josh Doan making his first true appearance in the NHL, probably going to stay with the team for the rest of the year. We'll see. Maverick Lamoureux is very young. Obviously, he's not with the team right now, but like they've got that young core that a couple of years, and we talked about it off screen about if you lock up Cooley, right, for 8 years at least, what you have is Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, and Clayton Keller together for at least another 4 years under contract. I think Keller has 4 more years under his contract. And you've got Keller still in his prime. And then you've got Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther blossoming into their prime, into their true athletic prime, into their mid-20s. That's where they're going to see their best hockey being played. Now, other teams look for, like we talked about, Crosby, Malkin, what's his name, McDavid and Draisaitl, Backstrom and Ovechkin. Like, you've got these double pairings, right? Two guys can make a franchise and win cups. 2 guys, 2 superstars. And Utah potentially has 3 on their hands. And actually, let's throw the word potentially out. They have 3 superstars on their team. All they've got to do is lock Logan Cooley up. I don't think he has any desire to not sign with the Utah Hockey Club. They've got the cap space to give him as much as he wants. The only thing is what you make Dylan Guenther mad that Logan Cooley gets an extra $500K on top of his because the salary cap went up. Like, I mean, that's the only downside, right, to giving him what is the equivalent of like a max contract, because he's not exactly a $12 million a year guy, but 9-10 million. Yeah, absolutely. You could see it. You could see him being the highest paid guy on the team. But he still has time. He's not at his ceiling. None of these guys are, right? Like Clayton Keller, you could argue like he's at his ceiling, but I don't think like he's still got so much. Like, it's not saying he hasn't shown his true potential or anything like that. Like, he's just blossoming in. He's finally, for the first time in his career, he's got some bona fide all-stars playing next to him. And I say that as a Schmaltz guy, but let's be honest. Schmaltz isn't a bona fide all-star. He's a very good role player, but he's not a bona fide all-star. But now Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther are. And that's going to just continue to allow Clayton Keller's natural game to progress and let him be both the playmaker and scorer that he is. And then you can develop Guenther, who is the true goal scorer, and Logan Cooley, who is that hybrid as well, but is showing glimpses of that pure goal scorer. And if you just let Keller just collect 50-plus assists every season, like, the cup's coming to Utah. It's just a matter of what other pieces can you fit around so that you don't have glaring weaknesses, because there are. Despite the bright spots there, this team still has a lot of glaring weaknesses that they have to shore up. And if they can make the playoffs, I agree with you, Dustin, if they can just make it, they're going to play a team that they've beaten before, right? They're going to likely play Winnipeg, assuming nothing changes, right? They play Winnipeg, or maybe, I guess Minnesota and Dallas are both coming up, but other than Dallas, like, we've beat Minnesota, we've beaten Winnipeg, we've played Dallas very, very close all the time. So, like, we beat Colorado, and Colorado, like, we've beaten the teams, like, right? We're 500 against the Central Division opponents. Like, we've beaten the playoff teams that we're going to play in the first round. So we will be respectable even. Will we win the first round? Likely not. But we won't get horribly swept like Winnipeg did against Colorado. Like, I don't think it's going to be a shellacking like that if we do sneak in. But we got to actually sneak in. Let's just let's throw out the prediction. Ryan, what are your thoughts on kind of the homestand? Do you see it happening?
Well, I think that one thing we haven't really touched on the last couple things is John Moreno coming back. And gotta be honest, I don't think I've seen him make a single mistake these couple games he's been back. And he claims he was going to need like 2 weeks. Humble piece of shit. It's about to, like, he needs to just start bragging a little. Like, that save he made where he got in front of the net, he robbed a goal. Like, in my opinion, put that top 10 save of the year. At least save of the year by a non-goalie. But I think the defense has played a lot better the last 2 games. With St. Louis and Winnipeg, they really kind of stepped in. And I don't want to blame Sergachev, because it's probably not his fault. Randon can get into that with you guys on Twitter if you want to go into that more. But I think once Durzi comes back, and I think that really hampered us was losing Marino and Durzi early, because that was, 4 months without 2 of our best defensemen. And I think if they can come back and go back to that same play they were at the beginning of the year, we have a much better chance of making the playoffs. But I hope we do. I'm going to have some faith and say, yeah, I think we can sneak in if we can keep rolling this positivity. And I don't know why Turney is not letting O'Brien fight whenever he wants. I don't know if the league is scared, or if like everyone else in the league is not giving Tuna the fights. But like, come on, give us what we want. And I mean, that one fight led to 3 straight goals. So I mean, that's momentum. But yeah, I think we have a chance, but it could go either way.
Mm-hmm. No, and you're absolutely right to bring up John Moreno, who has just been outstanding for this team so far. I actually ran the numbers. So over the 7-game homestand, only 4 players are in the plus and plus minus. Only 4. Oli Mata at +1. John Marino at +2. Barrett Hayton at +2. And Michael Kesselring at +3. So 3 of our 4, or 3 defensemen, of the 4 people who are in the plus category, it's 3 defensemen. And John Marino and Oli Mata might be the 2 best pure defensive defensemen that we have. Oli Mata for sure, I think, is arguably the best pure defenseman that we have. And John Moreno is just coming on strong, but really just solidifying that. Now, Sergachev, over the 5 games that he played in, -7. Jack McBain -5 to pull up that. But Sergachev, yes, Ryan, defend Sergachev.
Look, I am. Here's my one argument to that. How much ice time is Sergachev getting compared to everybody else in those games? I'm just saying. He was, at my last checking, which was a few games ago, was 2nd in the league in amount of ice time per game. So, I feel, I'm not saying this is an excuse, -7 is not a good look for our number 1 guy. It's not. We can all agree, not a great look. But, I think when you're playing 29 minutes a game, you got to give him, not a big buffer, but give him that extra, you know what I mean? He's playing against the best guys in the league. The Western Conference is the best conference in the league. So yeah, he's gonna, you know what I mean? He's, and if he was already hurt and, you know, maybe he was lagging a little these last couple games, I'm gonna defend my boy. So just give him a break. You know what I mean? Just give him a break.
No, you're absolutely right, Ryan. I agreed with you. They said he's got a huge workload, and maybe when Sturzy comes in, he won't have to shoulder that load as much. That is also a choice. That is a conscious choice that Torini's making, putting him on the power play. Otherwise, that lowers his numbers 3-4 minutes a game. But I don't want to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy. Let's take a look at the top 5 in time on ice. Zach Rowinski from the Columbus Blue Jackets is top. 26 minutes and 49 seconds per game. He's at a +9. Then Mikhail Sergachev is at this number 2 at 25.45, -11 on the season. Cale Makar in third, 24.43, +15. Quinn Hughes, 25.20, +13. Miro Heiskanen, 25.15, +4. And it's not until the 6th guy on the list, Roman Josi is -18.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sergachev's not a defensive defenseman. He's not. He's just not.
No.
You know that.
But you're putting him up against literally the other 4 best defensemen in the goddamn league. He's not that good. Like, we all know he's a top 20, but he's, in my opinion, I think he's a top 10. But is he in the lower part of that top 10? Absolutely. But don't compare, that's apples to oranges when you're comparing him to Makar and Quinn Hughes. Get out of here with that. They don't count. Look at him to Roman Josi. That's a fair comparison. He's better than Roman Josi.
That's fair. But they are truly elite offensive defensemen, and that's the only reason they are in the plus category, because they don't need to play defense, because they're so good at scoring. That's the only thing they do. But I'm not blaming Sergachev. I'm not blaming, no, there's no blame of Sergachev. I'm just stating the fact that we have not lost a game since he went out. That is just a fact. That is undeniable facts. But I'm not blaming Sergachev. I think our defense core has played very well, all things considered. I think they've done what we need them to do. They've contributed offensively. The identity of this team is to have defensemen contribute offensively. They haven't quite been as potent as other offensive defensemen, but they've done what they need to do in terms of actually, when we talk all season long about what is this team's identity, and I feel like there's multiple types of, like, the forwards have an identity, the defensemen have an identity that's not necessarily a cohesive team identity, but the defensemen have tried to engage more in the offensive play. It leads, unfortunately, to a lot of odd man rushes the other way. One unfortunate turnover because our defensemen are pressing so far forward that we tend to give up a few of those. But it also allows us to keep some offensive pressure and sustained offensive pressure that we do get from time to time. Whether we convert on it or not is another story. They still refuse to shoot the puck on the power play, but they're getting there. But defensemen have played well, and I'm just razzing Sergachev for the fun and for the engagement of it. But yeah, it is this team over these last two games. They could have tucked tail. They could have said, "Wow, our best defenseman, the leader on the ice most of the times, is gone," and that's it. Like, right, phoning in, throwing the towel, and they didn't. They rose to the occasion against the St. Louis Blues, and then you guys are right. They put in probably their most complete effort against an extremely talented Winnipeg Jets team, and they put up 4 goals against the best goalie on the ice in the NHL. And it wasn't even like fluke goals that got past him due to sneaky treachery. It was just straight up sniper shots, putting it exactly where you need to put it to beat him. And it really did say to me that this team is capable of beating anybody. It just needs to get consistent. That's it.
So I think we've kind of run the course on all of that, all the discussion about what went on in that home stretch. I think we went a little bit longer than I think we planned on, but it's been a while since all three of us were here, so we had a bit to say. I'm looking a little bit into the future and what's coming up. Like, we go on the road, which is really good because Utah's really good on the road. 3 very tough games coming up against the Minnesota Wild, the Winnipeg, and Ottawa as well. Like, those are 3 very good teams all in a row before we come back. Take a deep breath. We come back home with some more winnable games. Like, there are winnable games, but they're coming at home. So how do we turn the ship around in terms of winning at home against teams that we should be beating?
Consistency. I think a big problem we have at home is playing consistent against every team. It seems a lot at home we're like, oh, hey, these are the teams we're either on equal footing with or on paper we're better than, so we're not going to give it the full effort. And then we get behind early, and then once we get down on ourselves, this team falls apart completely. As soon as one guy gives up and the crowd dies, we're done. It's very hard for us to come back. I think the goaltending has been very good. The defense is getting better at home, you know what I mean? Or sort of. The last couple games, at least, they were. But I think a big thing is consistent offense by everybody, not just 1 or 2 lines a game, and then it's a different line the next game. Everybody, when they stay doing what they're supposed to do, we play phenomenal. Look at last night against Winnipeg. Even the third line with Bukestad and Krause, phenomenal. They played great. You know, no real offense out of them, but they were doing what they were supposed to do, and that can't be said every night for all 4 lines. But I don't know how to be better at home, but if we play with the same mentality we take on the road of, hey, we're going into enemy territory, you know what I mean, let's give them a wallop, why aren't we taking that in to be like, let's defend Utah? But so if we can be a little more consistent offensively, I think this team can get in the right direction.
There may be an element. Now, I want you guys to correct me, Ryan, see what you think about this theory that I have. So a lot of discussion has been made. I feel like the Utah fans, we kind of throw out a false narrative of like, oh, they said hockey will never work in Utah. Well, look at this crowd, right? Hockey will never work in Utah. Oh, yeah, look at this crowd. Like, I don't think anybody ever said hockey won't work in Utah. I just don't think there was ever a realistic path that Utah got an NHL team without something drastic happening, like the Arizona Coyotes finally letting that ship sink completely. They've been taking on water for a decade. They finally let it sink, and the opportunity came. And of course, Utah, a winter sport type state, of course they rally around hockey. Like, this is not a foreign concept. So that false narrative aside, what is an absolute narrative, though, is the players hear all the time that this crowd is coming out for them, and the crowd's coming out for them, the crowd's coming out for them. Most of them remember what it was like to play in front of Mullet, where it was loud, but I mean, that had to take its toll on the team for 2 straight seasons playing in a college arena, and now you come into a very daunting Delta Center that is not daunting because of the design of the building, makes it very daunting and imposing as a hockey arena. It's just so tall and vertical that it is just imposing. And I wonder if there is some sort of just mental thing where they are just trying too hard to impress the crowd, and they understand that they they hear it all the time. Oh, the crowd's coming out for you. The crowd's coming out for you. Let's make this the best home environment ever. And it's getting too much in their heads, because you'll see it. I don't know if we threw the graphic out, but if you guys ever saw on Twitter, there was the graphic about the goal differentials by period. And the second period scaries is not in our heads, right? Utah's fifth. As of yesterday, they were fifth in goal differential at plus 15 in the first period, and they were dead last at minus 16 in the second period, and then about 24th with -5 on the third period. And so that switch is not necessarily the psychological, but I do feel like this team sometimes tries to protect leads at home, and they play not to lose instead of playing to win. Do you guys, is there any truth to the psychological aspect? And I know they're professionals, but I think when you're constantly asked it, it has to be in the back of your mind,
I think it's a good theory, but I have one thing to add to that, kind of the idea of them trying, like when you were like they try kind of too hard. We're also the youngest team in the league. So a lot of these guys don't necessarily have a whole lot of experience. You know what I mean? So like, when you're a young team and you're trying to show, let's be honest, these guys are young kids. Sometimes there are times I'll look down at Cooley and Gunther and be like, the few kids. You know what I mean? You kind of just want to be like, stop it. Just play hockey. It's not a highlight reel. Stop it. Just make up. You know what I mean? But they're also very, very young. So I think that can kind of play into it. And them learning how to lose professionally. Like Cooley and Gunther, not necessarily, but like Keller and them, they lost, losing 2 years straight in a college arena. You're right, Rand. That's got to just take a toll on you. It's got to just be the worst feeling in the world. And now there's even more people you're losing in front of. You know what I mean? Like, that probably can with your head a little bit. But I think this is all a learning experience. And being professionals, we all kind of knew this year was going to be rough. I don't think any Utah hockey fan realistically thought this was going to be a cakewalk. Like, good hockey teams don't leave their city. Let's be honest. And it's not that we're bad, but they have a lot of learning to do as young kids. Even our veterans, minus Cole and Mata, are younger veterans. Like, what's Keller, 28? 29? That's not a veteran. You know what I mean? Like, that's not an old guy. So I think, there's a lot of pressure on them. But I think it's getting better. I think we can all agree the product is getting better more often at home than it's not. You know what I mean? Like, there are some times, they're really, really bad, but it's not every game anymore at home. They're not dogs. So, but I don't know if the building necessarily plays into it, but I think the amount of people can get in their head as young kids, especially like when you're going from playing, like you were saying, 5,000 people. Now there's 17,000 people, and it's loud. Not saying that's a fact. It could be not, but I think,
And I think that what you brought up, Brandon, like playing to not lose rather than playing to win, I think that's a general problem across all of sports for young teams. Like, you get a lead, and especially if you're going into a third period with it, like, you're like, okay, we don't want to take chances. We don't want to try and make a stretch pass and get and turn turn the puck over in the neutral zone and give a breakaway. Like, we don't want to make that mistake. We're not going to press. We're going to maybe like sit back in our own zone a little bit and try and kill clock. Like, it feels like a natural thing to do when you're trying to protect a lead. And just, I think it's all part of the process of being a young team that's learning how to win. Like, and we've seen spots of it. They did it last night against Winnipeg. Going into the third period against a top 2 team in the league with a 2-0 lead. Like, it would have been easy for them to say, okay, we're gonna sit back. We're gonna not lose this game. And they went out and they scored 2 more before Winnipeg finally got there first. Like they were aggressive and they scored. They wanted to extend that lead. Just keep that energy going. Like don't go back, don't revert back into the bad habits of let's play not to lose. I think you took over the Twitter handle last night, and I saw you tweet specifically, like, we're going into the third with a 2-0 lead. Play to win, don't play not to lose. And they did it. I'm going to say again, we tell the team to do something, they listen, so I'm just going to put it out there into the universe. Start playing to win instead of playing to not lose. Now they're going to do it, and we're going to make a nice little run right here.
No, absolutely. But you are right, Dustin. These three teams, it's not an easy little stretch. Back to back against the top two teams in the Central. We go to Winnipeg. We go to Minnesota. Now Winnipeg, extremely good at home. Extremely good at home. Currently 18-5-3 at home. Minnesota, however, not that great. Not as bad as us, but only 11-10-1. So 500. So the Minnesota game, which we get first, could be absolutely. Not even could be, is 100% winnable. And we aren't awful on back-to-backs. You know, who knows? But you're going to see a Winnipeg team in front of their home crowd, probably wants a little bit of revenge. If we go 1-1 in that, I'm ecstatic. And then Ottawa is a team that's currently playing they're in their wild card spot, but they're currently playing to be out of the wild card and into the third in their division. So that's three teams that are in the playoffs, currently in the playoffs right now, that Utah has a chance to show what they are capable of, and this will be again telling. If we go 0-3, it is what it is. I'm not going to say it completely ruins the season, but it really, really makes it tough from there. But if they can get 2 out of the 3, or hell, they can put together a 5-game win streak. I know it seems impossible. But this team has flashes. The team can win 5 in a row. They can. Will they? I doubt it, but they can. They can. But you know what, Dustin? You tossed up on Twitter. We said, hey, guys, let's get a little bit of interaction. Let's see, what do you guys want us to talk about? Do you have any questions for the Two Line Pass podcast? And we did. So we've got Ashley Brewer, who is a phenomenal fan. If you are not following Ashley, it's Hey Ash Tweets, right? Am I saying that right? Hey Ash Tweets. Ashley Brewer writes in, and let's get to her question here.
It's Hey Ash tweeted, not Hey Ash tweets.
Hey Ash tweeted. Hey Ash tweeted. Follow her on Twitter. It says, what is your take on who should be our number one goalie now that Ingram is back and has had some really good games? We did a whole episode before on this. This was before before we knew what his injury was, right? Now we know it was some mental thing, some death in the family type thing. He comes back, he's 2-1, and does this change anything? We've talked a lot behind the scenes, guys. I'm going to let you guys go first. Who is it? Veggie or Ingram in the starting?
Veggie. He's earned it over, you know what I mean? If you just look at their play when they've been in net, Veggie's been the better goaltender. So, Veggie. As much as that hurts, I support Ingram. Mental health brother. I love you, dude. But you kind of suck. Not going to lie, my guy. You have not been great this year.
Oh, Brandon, I know you're biting at the bit for this one, and my opinion is a response to what I think you're going to say. So I'm gonna cede my time to you. I'm gonna let you take the floor and let you go on your rant.
I got a rant, guys. I told you. So Ashley, you may not know this, but we've got ourselves a group chat, right? That we got our text friend. Yeah, everybody's got a group chat, right? And we've got it. And I said, as soon as Ingram came back, I knew Turigny was going to find a way to screw over Veggie. I said he's going to find a way, and that's why I asked the beat writers. I asked them. We talked a lot about it. I said, has Veggie done enough? Because here comes Ingram. He's healthy. Has he done enough? Right? The old adage: you don't lose your job to injury, but can you lose your job to being not very good? And we understand that some things happen, like, right, you don't want to kick anybody when they're down. But the fact of the matter is, his first 13 games or so, not great. Statistically, one of the worst seasons in the NHL. Veggie absolutely has done what he needs to do to retain the job. And here's for how. This is not just a feeling, right? I feel that Veggie is. I've got some facts for you. So just looking since Ingram came back. Just since he came back, Ingram's played 3 times, Veggie's played 6 times. Ingram is 2-1 with a .926 save percentage and a 2.01 goals against average. Incredible, right? Like, that's phenomenal. That's like Veggie numbers early in the season. Now you look at Veggie, and you're like, Veggie, 2, 3, and 1 save percentage with a 3.02 goals against average. You're like, Veggie, you had a chance. You had a chance to seize it, and then you lost it. But let me tell you this. Of the top 5 games between those two, since Ingram came back, the top 5 games, Ingram has the better stats in 2 of the top 3, including the best, a .947 save percentage, 1.10 goals against average against the San Jose Sharks. Ingram has 3 out of the top 5, but Vejmelka has 2 of the top 3 performances. Now, Ingram's last game before he went out, November 18th, .692 save percentage and 9.36 goals against. Not great. Not great. Since that date, Veggie in net, 9-9-3 with a .903 save percentage and a 2.52 goals against average. That is good enough in the modern NHL to give your team a chance to win every single game. Now, what's more, I'm calling him out by name. Craig Morgan called out some podcasts, not ours because we never actually stated it, called some people out for saying that Stauber might be a better option as backup than Ingram. Now, this was, of course, before we knew what Ingram was out for, but Craig Morgan insisted that everybody looked like a bunch of jackasses for not being better to Ingram. Well, let me show you this. 3 games Ingram's played. You remember what I said? .926, 2.01 over the last 3 games since he came back. Since he went out originally, Stauber's played 4 games. Stauber's stats, .925 and 2.23 with a shutout. Statistically, Stauber is playing just as good as Ingram is coming back to this game. In conclusion, Vejmelka is 100% should be the starter. But I will tell you this for a guaranteed fact, Coach Tarigny is going to screw him over. Veggie's going to start in net on Thursday. Veggie's going to start in net on Friday, and then Ingram's going to start again on Sunday. Mark my words, they're going to do this tandem at best. Veggie has lost the starting job, not because of play, but because Tarigny doesn't know how to run a team, and the Andre out, fire Tarigny hashtags are going to come out in full force before the end of it. You screwed him over, Andre. You screwed him over.
I am in total agreement with you. I believe that the job should belong to Vejmelka. Like, he's been the better goalie this year, and he has regressed a little bit. Like, you went over the stats for Ingram since his return have been better than Veggie's. So while I do believe it should be Karel Vejmelka in net, if somebody wanted to argue the point of Connor's been better since he came back and he was better last year, and you want to say like maybe he was just battling some demons. I don't know what was going on with his family. We know what he was gone for was the loss of his mother. I don't know if she was battling something that and like he knew that like that time was approaching, so it was battering him mentally. Maybe that had something to do with the early season struggles. So if somebody wanted to argue that it should be Connor Ingram, I'm not going to completely dismiss the argument they're making. I do believe it should be Veggie, but I will at least listen to the argument that it should be Connor Ingram in net. The one thing that you cannot do, and I have seen some fans on Twitter mention this, is like maybe start Ingram, and then if he performs well, give him another start. Or put Veggie in net, and if he performs well, then maybe he earned another start. Like, you have to have a clear number 1 and a clear number 2. You cannot like, okay, well, this guy performed well, so we're going to give him one more game. Oh, he performed really well again, we're going to give him another game. And then he kind of struggled in that one, so now we're going to go back to the other guy. Like, you can't do that in sports. The one comparison I've had in my head all day long, you go back about a decade to the University of Utah football team. They had 2 quarterbacks. One was Travis Wilson, and one was Kendall Thompson. And there was a year where Travis Wilson starts the year as a starter. and he struggles for a couple of games, so they make the move to Kendall Thompson. It's like, okay, well, he didn't play super well, but they beat UCLA, so we're going to start him again the next week. And then that week he struggles. And then the next week you start him again, he struggles, but now we're going to pull him. We're going to put Travis Wilson back in. And it caused havoc for both of them. And it killed the confidence of both of those players, just constantly looking over their shoulder like, crap, I have to be really good tonight or else coach is going to pull me. I have to go out here and perform. Finally, they're putting me in net. I have to perform tonight. I have to perform. And it puts so much unneeded stress on an athlete. You cannot do that. So while I believe it should be Vejmelka, I would listen to arguments for Ingram, but you have to make the choice. One of these guys is your number one guy, and they should be getting 4 or 5 starts for every 1 start from the other guy. It should be Veggie. I won't lose any sleep over it if it's Ingram, but you have to have a clear number 1 and a clear number 2.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to be clear. Winning cures all, right? So if Ingram's your starter and he wins, great. Like I am not rooting for Ingram to fail, right? I feel like Veggie's won the position, but I would never root for Ingram to fail just so I can say, should have been Veggie. No, the team wins. The team wins. But like you said, Dustin, here's what I cannot abide. I cannot abide Torigney saying you need 2 goalies. It's got to be a tandem. You need 2 goalies. Yeah, you need 2 goalies, but nobody is saying that Winnipeg Jets is anybody other than Connor Hellebuyck. Nobody is ever saying that Ottinger isn't the guy in Dallas. Nobody is ever saying that Igor Shesterkin isn't the guy in New York. Nobody is ever saying that Igor Bobrovsky is not the guy in Florida, right? Like every top-tier team has their number 1 goalie. Yes, they have a backup. They all do. And yes, all the backups get starts, right? They can get a lot of them. Give them 20-plus starts, right? But ideally, your starter gets 55 or more. Ideally gets 55 or more. And right now, I just worry Tyranny's going to just play that half-and-half game, and it's going to fall right into the trap, Dustin. Whether it's intentional or not, it's going to fall right into the trap of being, oh, he's hot, got to stick with him. Oh, now he's cold. Oh, he's hot, got to stick with him. Now he's cold. Like, what happens if they lose? Like, what happens, right? Because then you're in both their heads, and that sucks. That sucks. Pick one, whoever it is, Turney, just pick one and have the balls as a coach to stay with it. But thank you, Ashley, for the question. We appreciate it. Guys, I think we're almost out of time, but let's wrap it up. Do you guys have any closing thoughts before we send off the viewers?
You know, I noticed something, and I was going to make a comparison to something you said in another episode, but it's like a week or so away, looking down the pipeline at the schedule that's coming up. So I'll tease that for next episode. I have a comparison to make that I think you'll like, but we'll save that for next episode. Other than that, I've got nothing.
Thank you, Dustin. Ryan, your closing thoughts?
My closing thought is, did you guys know that a day on Venus lasts longer than a year on Venus? Well, now you do.
I always love learning stuff.
My tiny peanut brain cannot handle such a thing. Hey, guys, thanks so much for being fans of the show. We appreciate it. We love the Twitter interaction with you guys. We love interacting with you on the socials. Follow us on the Twitter, @the2linepass, on TikTok, @the2linepass, on YouTube, @the2linepass. Then you've got @highlights you, @TLP Randon, @Carnes Ryan 420. He's mostly on the Instagram, but he technically has a profile. Hey, early games on the East Coast mean potentially some post games. Join us for the live post games on Twitter where you guys can interact with us during the post game. Get your thoughts out there. We'll talk crap on the other team together. We'll talk about what went right, what went wrong about the games, but we love having you guys. Thanks so much for listening. You guys have a good night.